Hello and welcome. Hope everyone's doing okay. I am doing great. Just thought I'd do a quick update on the Cyatheas. They've been inside. So just quickly starting from this sort of beginning, there's three Cyatheas there. You've got the Cyathea Australis down, the small one, which is, I bought that a few weeks ago. The medium one, if you like, is a Cyathea Cooperii. I bought that last year. It's probably in and around the same size as the Australis, maybe a little bit smaller, only a couple of leaves on it. But he's had a bit of a rough life, if you like. I've sort of had him in pots, had him in different areas of the garden, put him in the ground a couple of times, moved him around quite a lot, so he's not had a sort of consistent run at it, that thing. He looks a bit worse for wear now, but I think that's more what I've been even worse on him inside over winter than I have been when he was outside. He started off in the garage, which doesn't really have any light and is pretty cold, and then same with this big one. This big one was, when did I get this? Probably end of September, early October last year. This is a Cyathea Cooperii as well. So that one should look like that one if the growing conditions are alright in a couple of years' time, maybe a bit more, depending obviously how it goes. That one I got obviously as a sort of full-size plant, and you can see sort of actually just going on about the sort of stress of moving them and that. This frond here, the one closest to us with the funny little bend in it, that one was kind of half open when I bought it, up to the point where it's going up, and then it stopped right in the centre at the top of that sort of hill, if you like, on the stem, the top of the bend, and it sort of went into shock obviously for a couple of weeks, and then it sort of come out a bit funny in that. So that's what I'm sort of referring to when I'm on about they've had hard lives, and that is that they've constantly been moving, so they sort of go into shock and all that sort of thing. So I was going to overwinter them outside these two, ignore the Australis for now when I'm speaking, because I've only just got that. But because they were in pots like they are now, I'm going to put them either in the ground or in, like a raised flower bed. So I didn't think any experimenting I would have done would have transferred over very well to next year necessarily. And also pretty glad I didn't, because obviously the winter turned out being -8 here, and they definitely, I'm pretty sure, would have died. Although these two varieties are supposed to be pretty hardy from what I gather. I've been doing a bit of reading up. The Cyathea Australis actually is supposed to be hardy, at least as hardy as a Dixonia antarctica. They grow in the same places, in the same vicinity of each other, and even better, if you like, in commas, is that they actually grow in more open sites and at slightly higher altitudes, so they should be able to take a bit more sun, a bit more wind, and a bit more sort of cold. But I'm assuming that refers to them in Australia or New Zealand, where they're absolutely ginormous. So yeah, that's not going to transfer to here, I'm aware of that, but just for argument purposes, they should only need the same sort of protection as Dixonias when they size up, or if I get a bigger one. The Cooperii, I think they're supposed to be very similar and similar, sort of found in similar places as the Australis. The only difference that I know of them is that the way to identify them is, can you see the sort of like hairs on the bottom of this big Cooperii running up the fronds and the stike there? That they're kind of like hairs. I don't know if we'll get a very good sight of this, but in there it's a bit more, I think the technical term is scaly. So the Cooperii has hairs on it, and the Australis has scales, but apparently they're found in similar places. I've seen pictures of big ones of these. I've got one in one of my books, where it's kind of in a park, in an open, island bed. There's a run of about 6 of them, and they're absolutely massive. They're just like trees, like the big palm trees you see anywhere. See what I mean? So they do get big, obviously, when they've in perfect growing conditions. So, but it looks like they might actually take a bit of sun, these, which is quite good, because I think Dicksonia antarcticas is, and other Dicksonias, I guess, is that if they're in full sun, they need kind of a lot more moisture, as it were, which wouldn't be too much of an issue for me, because obviously I've got irrigation, or will have when I finish setting it all up. But yeah, so I might get away with getting as big a fronds. I mean, these things are pretty big already. I'd say that frond there, the one with the nice flat plane to it, if you see what I mean, the sort of angle that it runs at, that one there, I would say is probably, if I put it up on its end, about 5 foot maybe. So yeah, so get back to 5 minutes ago. These were both in the garage to start with for most of winter, which is pretty chilly in there. It didn't really get too much above 6-7 degrees. And then after Christmas, I brought them out and I put them over in the corner where the cheese plant is, but you'll notice that's right next to a radiator under the window. And it started, this was probably the first week of January I did this, and you can see like the fronds just started dropping, like, I don't know, something that drops quick. But that one, you can see the frond there, that was sort of going anyway, but he just suddenly went. The one at the back there just suddenly went brown. This one here just suddenly went brown, and then this one here started going brown, as you can see. It took me about 10 days, 2 weeks to clock onto that. I just thought it was because I moved them. I didn't clock on that they were right next to a radiator, and these things grow in like, sort of, I said they grow in open sites, but it's like moisty, sort of, I guess, sort of like misty, cloud foresty sort of type areas where it's quite humid. So sort of 2 week, I don't know, last week of January, I would guess, I swapped the cheese plant and this one over. This is quite far away from a radiator. It's there. It's a west facing window. You can tell because it's just gone 12 o'clock. It's slightly off west to the south slightly, but you can just, if you can see that shadow coming off the bit of the wall there, it's just a couple of inches past, and it's just gone midday. So this is when it will start getting actual sort of direct light, and even then it's filtered like with the blinds there. So yeah, and they're pretty high maintenance. That back one, I reckon I spray it probably 4 or 5 times a day, and then I give it a good water once a week. And that bottom crown, if you like, if you can pick it up, that thing, I'm just keeping it sort of soaking wet, and then I just mist the leaves just so they don't lose it as much through the leaves. Or that's the theory anyway, I don't know, I've never done this. This Cyathea Cooperii was by the front door, but also by a radiator, so you can see a couple of his fronds started going black. I didn't move him here straight away, I put him back in the garage. So now he's just come out, because I want all these 3 to have the same sort of going through motions now, as we get into sort of going into putting them out. But just to let you know, the speed of this sort of thing grows when it's in pretty good conditions. That frond and that frond weren't out when I moved it. They were tucked up like that one. You probably can't see, it's just to the right of this dead frond that's coming towards us. It's just about to come out. But they weren't out when I moved it over here, so that would have been last week of January, say 4 weeks. So yeah, say 4 or 5 weeks. Those 2 fronds have completely unfurled virtually in 4 weeks, 5 weeks. I reckoned it was about a rate, because when I'm sat over my dinner, I can like reference where they are and let them grow up, and yeah, I reckon it was between 1 inch and 2 a day they were unfurling. So what I want to do, because I know it's going to go into the shock, as we know by this frond, sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, I'm going to let this frond unfurl fully, and then once it's unfurled, and this one, whether it starts coming or not, then I'm going to move all of them back into the garage. That at the moment is more of an average of between 8 and 10 degrees temperature wise at the moment, so I'll put them out there for a couple of weeks, and then when it starts creeping up to 7-8 degrees outside as a minimum temperature, I'll pull them outside in pots for another couple of weeks, just put them roughly where they're probably likely to be going so they get used to the rain of the sort of way the sun's going and all that sort of business, and then I'll put them in the ground. So it could easily be, if say that's going to take a couple of days just to finish off unfurling, so 2 weeks out there, 2 weeks there. So yeah, it could be a good month. We could be on for maybe early April actually putting them in the ground. But yeah, you know, I think they're going to look pretty good. So we will see how we do with it. Anyway, basically the gist of the whole video is, yes, you can grow Cyatheas inside, but you need a lot of space and they need a lot of misting to actually do anything really, in my experience. But there we go. Anyway, just that, see you next time.